Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of the Arsenal Transfer Show, joining you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much, as always, for making this a part of your morning routine. It is always a pleasure to join you, and it is, of course, a brand new week, and we start with the build-up to Arsenal's match against Manchester City on Friday. We'll be bringing you plenty of content in the lead up to that game. Lots of big decisions need to be made. I feel like it's Monday, but it's Tuesday. Maybe it's because I had Monday off, felt like a Sunday. But yes, we start this week in the lead up to that game against Man City. I'm going to be there, which I'm absolutely buzzing about, at the Etihad Stadium on Friday, working that fixture. So hopefully get some extra insight that wouldn't typically be available to us. Good morning to people joining us in the chat box. NSW, morning to you. Let's go to Damien and Ollie, although I'm getting the feeling that maybe StreamYard has robbed those early people. Marcus was indeed first, Clincy as well, Yomi, Anthony, Stevie, good morning to you guys. I don't know why StreamYard's just being mean at the moment and robbing the accolade of getting in first spot. Maybe someone at StreamYard listens to the pods and they never get first and they're sick of it, so they're cutting people out. Vivian, Tebby, good morning to you. Jake, Afsar, Sahil, Martin, Amira, Gavin, Lynn, good morning, guys. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. And everybody else joining us. I can't just go through the whole list like a school register. But James, thank you so much for the donation as well. That means a lot. And thank you for supporting the channel. Really appreciate the kind gesture. Yesterday was great, by the way. Just give you a little bit of an insight into something I did. I met lots of people that you'll recognise if you're watching on or listening rather on audio platforms, or maybe hop over to the YouTube side of things to come and have a look at the photo. But our good friend Mike from the Gooners pod thought it would be a funny idea if we went to a restaurant that he always goes to when he comes to London because it's called Canton. It's a Chinese restaurant in Leicester Square. But as you can see, there's an amazing group of people there. Pablo Owen, Albert, Lee Judges, Sophie, Harry Simew, Jared Carver, of course, fantastic member on the channel. First time meeting him, which was great. Tom and Co as well. It was fantastic meeting everybody yesterday and seeing everybody. And it was actually quite a good meal. I'll be very honest. My namesake can do a fine Singapore rice noodle. I'd say it was very nice indeed. Anyway, let's move forwards and talk about our stories of the day. Work continued on the stadium artwork and will continue forward. There's hope that if the weather remains as good as it can be, that the Brentford game is what's being aimed at to get full reaction. I'm hoping to be able to go to that game to get some fan reactions outside the stadium to the artwork, which would be great to see. But obviously it depends on the weather. If it holds off, they'll be able to continue putting up the artwork. But until then, we'll have to hopefully just keep our fingers crossed that indeed the weather stays dry. Arsenal have announced the signing of Jakub Kiwior. He obviously joined us on Monday and was officially announced. He joined us, I think, he was over for the game against Man United over the weekend, done all the interviews and stuff, and was announced yesterday. Spoke really openly about how his style of play is about passing and progression, and he likes being in teams that like to control the ball. And of course, the club are very happy to get the deal done. I'm sure there's even a chance we might see him play against Manchester City on Friday. We'll have to wait and see if that indeed does happen. Moises Caicedo, moving into more transfer news, has changed agents, and Arsenal are said to be amongst a number of teams, including Chelsea and Liverpool, that are indeed monitoring the situation. We know that Chelsea have already had a bid rejected for Moises Caicedo. If this change of agent is because he wants them to be able to negotiate a potential move this winter, maybe it could spark Arsenal into action. But at the moment, all their interest is said to be is just monitoring the situation. They aren't as actively pursuing Caicedo right now like Chelsea are. Lampard was, of course, sacked as Everton boss, according to Belgian football journalist Sacha Tavolieri. This has opened a potential exit door only 6 months after he arrived from Lille for Amadou Onana. The Belgian international has been probably the brightest spark amongst a very disappointing Everton team. Defensive midfielder playing in a position that, of course, Arsenal need cover and depth in. And Arsenal were linked quite heavily to Onana last summer when he was at Lille, were said to be one of the clubs, along with West Ham and, of course, Everton, who signed him, to be looking at Onana. Arsenal said to be considering a potential move if indeed an opportunity does arrive, although, as we know, they have got that interest in Declan Rice. So there you go. Very funny, Dan Robert. I get the joke. Gazzetta dello Sport in Italy, so let's get our salt shakers at the ready, people, have claims that Arsenal want to sign Weston McKennie. Juventus are said to be open to selling the USA international between 20 and 25 million euros. McKennie, of course, has been playing at the World Cup with the US men's national team and has done pretty well since moving from Schalke to Juve. It was potentially a bit of a move that people didn't necessarily expect to happen. He's a progressive midfielder, does like to get forwards, more in the 8 role than the 6, although it said that he can cover there. Very athletic player, plenty of running in him. I'm not sure he's the right player for us, to be honest. Depth-wise, yes, he probably pushes the needle a bit compared to Lokonga and El Neni in those positions, but obviously is not going to be someone, I don't think, that necessarily competes with the likes of Partey and Xhaka. I think they are a level above. And if we are going to bring a midfielder in, is it worth investing around 20 to 25 million in a player that doesn't bring you competition to those players? I'm not so sure, especially when we might be eating into a potential budget that can be used to sign someone genuinely competitive to our starting options in the summer transfer window. Now, Cedric is said to be now closer to moving to Fulham. It seems like this story changes every day. Every day we talk about Cedric. One day it's close, another day it's struggling because of personal terms. Another day it's close again. But the latest information is that Fulham's loan with an option to buy in the summer is a deal that could be closed in the coming days. This, of course, has had a big impact on Arsenal's potential pursuit of their own right-back target, and has unfortunately seemingly had a bit of a detrimental impact on it, because the latest information regarding Ivan Fresneda coming out of Spain is that Borussia Dortmund are said now to have taken the lead in the race to sign Ivan Fresneda. As we heard from David Ornstein yesterday, Arsenal and Dortmund have both agreed 50 million euro deals for the 18-year-old right-back. However, we are still yet to hear about a public decision being made. What I will say is that the outlet that reported this story, Pacella News, has been covering this in quite a lot of detail, did also report that he had effectively told Arteta and Arsenal that he wanted to go there. So how much detail there is, how much truth there is in this story that's coming out, I am a little bit reserved about. But as we know, and as we heard from David Ornstein, both Dortmund and Arsenal have agreed a deal with Real Valladolid for the potential signing of Ivan Fresneda. The opportunity, of course, at Dortmund, you imagine, would be more immediately available to him. They are said, though, to apparently want him immediately, whereas Arsenal might be more willing to let him leave on loan back to Real Valladolid for the rest of the season. Arsenal have options in that position. Borussia Dortmund, in fairness, also have plenty of options at right back. They have plenty of players that can play in that position. But it's difficult to see Arsenal, if this is the case, suddenly turning this around after the deal has been agreed between the clubs. It creates usually a very smooth and swift process once a team takes a lead in this position. But fingers crossed, hopefully Arsenal can turn this one around. We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to await news. And as soon as we hear anything, of course, you'll know that I'll bring you that update in, hopefully, tomorrow morning's show. Fingers crossed we can get this done, because he seems to be a very talented player. I've just pressed pause on the tactical breakdown for this reason. I have got an expert lined up, fingers crossed, for the show, should indeed he look like he is moving closer to Arsenal. So I'll bring you that tactical breakdown if indeed it looks like he's getting to a point where he'll be signing. But with this very much up in the air now, it has delayed that show a little bit, just to be honest with you. I don't want to do a Mudryk or a Joao Felix and then see him move to Dortmund after doing a lot of work. So just let's be patient on the Fresneda thing just for the moment. You won't have to be patient if you want to change your geolocation, though, on your tablet, laptop, or iPhone device, or just mobile device, because you can use NordVPN to change it in an instant. And not only that, but you can get yourself a significant discount off the service by using nordvpn.com/Gooner in the process as well. I told you yesterday that it was our last day of the previous sponsorship, and I'm very happy to say that the transitions, the smoothness is returning for another 2 weeks at least, as NordVPN have been very happy with the partnership that we've had with them over the last few weeks and last couple of months or so. And they're clearly enjoying our smooth transition so much that they want to continue to support the channel, which also might support us with an exciting event that might happen also in a couple of months' time. More information about that, but there's a small tease for you. But in terms of NordVPN, of course, as I've said, it keeps those pesky trackers away from you, keeps you secure and safe online, as we all very well know. Protect yourselves from the peeping Todd Bowleys out there. We don't need them. We don't need them in our lives, looking at what transfer targets we could be buying. Keep yourself safe, secure, and private online. Get yourself the ability to change your geolocation. If you don't like the service, you can get a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. Thank you so much to NordVPN, as always. We are going to also tell you about what is a 24-hour competition at Football Prizes. You can get yourself 2 hospitality tickets to Manchester City's game against Arsenal on Friday this week. This is a very short competition, a 12-hour competition that has already started. In fact, already 25 of the 65 potential raffle tickets for the prize, 29 in fact already, have been sold. If you are able to go to the game, make sure you check all travel arrangements before entering this competition to win hospitality to Man City against Arsenal. Do make sure you check that stuff before you get involved. But information is in the link in today's video description. Let's move to let's move to NordVPN. Oh, let's move to part 2 and your questions right after this. Okay, part 2 is off. Let's jump into the chat box and take some of your questions. Lynn says, Tom, if you had to make the choice between Declan Rice or Sergei Milinkovic-Savic, I would pick Savic. Who would you pick? I would pick Rice. Not just to be different, Lynn. I just think that the Premier League experience, the age, I think these things suit Arsenal a lot better. We get a lot more years out of Rice than we would out of Milinkovic-Savic. I also think that the desire to bring in a 6 is greater than the left-sided 8, which is where Savic would play. I don't think Savic would necessarily play where Partey is playing for us right now. I think he could, for sure. But I think Rice is obviously more suited to that position. And I think also you have to consider the fact that the number of 6s that could really replace Partey aren't that out there. Whereas I think there are a lot more box-to-box midfielders that are available out there and could be potentially viable in the summer. And that's why I lean more towards Rice than I do Milinkovic-Savic. Penny Wynn says, do you think that because we've lost one game this season that it helps us with the pressure of our title challenge? Had we still been unbeaten at this stage, maybe that would be becoming a bit of a narrative. It almost certainly would. I remember when Man City were going ridiculously unbeaten or Liverpool were going unbeaten. It's all people could talk about. And then as soon as they lost a game, it was, oh, well, that's over. It was a kind of a big dip in their confidence. So, yes, maybe the fact that we have dropped a loss this season in the league actually is removing that element of things. If you remember, there's plenty of teams, I think, that have gone through the years, won a title, having only lost the one. I say plenty. I think there's only a few. I know Arsenal, of course, are one of those under George Graham, that won the league title, only losing one game. But, I think it probably does help, actually. It's a good point. RD says, hey, Tom, let's start a movement. Let's start inviting Fresneda to Arsenal on Instagram. More than 1,000 Gooners here, plus all your subscribers. We can do it. Look, I'm always in favour of this. If you can, send a message to Ivan Fresneda. Do it. As long as you're being respectful, do it. Tell him to come to Arsenal. Let him know he is wanted at the club. We've got to use our little force that we have to try and sway any potential deal in the future. Sebastian says, what do you think would happen with Norton Cuffy if Arsenal signed Fresneda? I think he would continue to move out on loan, maybe step up to the Premier League next season. He spent time with... he was at Rotherham, of course, and now he's gone to Coventry for the rest of this season. So, yeah, look, I think that there is options for him to move, and I think he probably will be sold in the future. But Arsenal will get a good fee, you would hope, for someone like Norton Cuffy, who looks like an exciting talent. Yomi says, what happens when Nketiah is in the room? Oh, your defence is in trouble. And says, when do we win the title? And can we have Richard Keys and Gary Neville riding along with the team on the open bus to parade? The looks on their faces would be brilliant. I love the when in that comment. When we win the title. Very, very confident indeed. Amira says, are the Arteta, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Gerrard, Lampard debates finally over? Have I missed anyone else? Was there ever a debate? I mean, I know Lampard was at Chelsea and Ole was at Man United. Gerrard never really get into that kind of level, but Arteta's just a cut above those guys, significantly better at coaching and managing than those guys. Really, really significantly so, as we've seen with Arsenal and we've seen with their own performances. Matt says, if Rice is our top summer midfield target, do you think we need to win the league to get him? No, I don't. I do think, though, that maybe Chelsea staying out of European action and Arsenal being in Champions League football would be a big, big help. And of course, winning the league gives you that accolade and extra money in that sense. But I think there is enough evidence to suggest that any player that we try and sign that Arsenal are on a pathway to try and win titles already. So I think that helps us. And of course, if you could win the league, it would help us. But I think that we are showing the evidence this season that we are going to be title challengers in seasons to come. And so that is going to help us, hopefully, with those types of signings. David says, Mudryk is special, and I was extremely embarrassed and disappointed when we lost out to Chelsea. However, Trossard's little cameo was impressive, which shows that we're getting steals in an inflated market. I think Arsenal have been good at getting deals for good prices. People talk about Gabriel Jesus bit of 45 million with 1 year left on his deal being a really big amount of money for someone with that time left. But in reality, there are a lot of teams interested in Jesus. You think about Juventus, Barcelona, Chelsea, Tottenham. We're all interested in Gabriel Jesus. We got it done because we were willing to pay that money. But you look at Zinchenko, 30 million quid. You look at Ødegaard, 30 million quid. You look at Gabriel Magalhaes, 25 million pounds. Saliba, 27 million pounds. In the last few years, even with and without Edu and Arteta in the sense of Saliba in particular, we have made some very, very good signings. Martinelli, of course, goes into that group with Saliba as well. Tierney at 25 million, I think we'll make a profit on him when we sell it. Ramsdale. There are so many examples now of players that we've signed for a good amount of money that are having such a massive impact on this team. We're very smart, I think, in the market. Yes, we can be frustrating. Yes, we might not be able to get our number one targets because we can be priced out of them. But I love the preparedness of this team that when we miss out on a target, we've got someone else lined up, ready and raring to go. The 21 million for Trossard, the 20 million for Kiwior could be the next examples for us on this journey. So let's wait and see. Jason says, would you sacrifice the FA Cup and the Europa League to focus on the Premier League? Not without any guarantees, Jason, that's for sure. I think the FA... Look, imagine the idea of Arsenal winning a double this season and picking up 2 trophies. That would be... the Premier League title is unbelievable. Really genuine and unbelievable achievement. But I don't really want to give up the idea of a double, or I don't want to say the word treble because it's always like, quadruples get talked about with league leaders all the time. We're already out of the League Cup, as we know. I was happy going out of that competition. We didn't need it. It was a distraction. The FA Cup, I think, is a fine competition to keep playing in. The Europa League, we need in a way to prepare ourselves for Champions League football next season. That is going to give us the challenge of playing strong teams twice a week consistently. So I don't want to sacrifice them because I don't think there are any guarantees that it immediately will help us. And I think we are signing depth. You look at our team now. I think we got Ramsdale and a good goalkeeper in Turner, and I do like Turner. I know some people aren't convinced by him. I like Turner. I think you look at right back, you've got Ben White, you've got Tomiyasu. Maybe we'll have one of either Cedric or Fresneda. We'll have to wait and see. At right centre-back, you've got Saliba. Ben White can, of course, play there. Tomiyasu can, of course, play there. Rob Holding can, of course, play there. At left centre-back, we've got Gabriel. We've now got Kiwior. You've still got Holding and Tomiyasu as well, as I say. At left-back, you've got Zinchenko. You've got Tierney. Again, you've got Tomiyasu that can play there. CDM, that's where it gets a little bit lighter, as we know, and that's why I think we need to make sure we bring a midfielder in between now and the end of the window. Partey, Elneny, Lokonga. Left side of midfield, Xhaka, Lokonga, Smith Rowe, Vieira can play there. Number 8, attacking 8, Ødegaard, Smith Rowe, Vieira. Right wing, Saka, arguably Gabriel Jesus. And I was actually talking about this the other day, that maybe when Gabriel Jesus comes back, it's not necessarily that he comes in place of Eddie, but he could be someone that gives Saka a rest on the right-hand side. He's played right think I'm going to write about it today because I think it's certainly something that we could consider doing. Is if we want to give Saka a rest, you start Nketiah and Jesus together and you move Jesus to the right. I think he can play that role. I think he definitely can play that role and has done in the past for Man City. So that's certainly something that we need to think about. And then, of course, up top, we've got Jesus, we've got Nketiah. You could argue Martinelli could play there as well if we ever wanted him to. Smith Rowe has been back to play false nine. And on the left-hand side, you've got now Martinelli, Trossard, Smith Rowe can all play those positions. And arguably, you could say Nketiah and Jesus can also play on the left as well. So I think we've got options. And I think we've got enough to be able to cover multiple competitions between now and the end of the season. So, yeah, I think that we've got depth. I think we need to add a little bit more in midfield, but we'll wait and see if that turns out to be something that we end up doing this window. Roy, say, hi, Tom. Sorry, I missed a few live shows because of the time zone. Oh, that's okay, Roy. Tune in when you can, fella. What do you think the kind of annual accounts Arsenal have this year? The actual financial status, the PR, the league status, Champions League expectation. Of course, last year we made another loss, and we're probably going to make another loss this season because we're not selling players well enough and we're investing a lot of money. However, getting into the Champions League, potentially finishing in a really high position, the Premier League is going to help us with that. It's going to help us with the revenue. It's going to help us bring money in, and hopefully we can sell some players this summer. We've got Nicola Pepe, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Cedric, Rob Holding potentially, El Neni potentially, although I think El Neni will probably stay for next season. I think that's probably going to happen. In fact, I'm happy to make a prediction right now. I think he'll be here next season. And who else have we got that we could move on? You've got some youth players, I suppose. Brook Norton-Cuffy could be sold. There are other young players coming through that also. Balogun could be sold. I could easily see him making upwards of 30 to 40 million. With a big Italian team maybe coming in for him. I think AC Milan have been linked to him in the past few months or so. Who knows? Maybe we see big money made for someone like Balogun. So there is options. And I think that we are. Lokonga, Tavares, yes, thank you, Chatbox. There are two other players that maybe we sell in the summer. So I think there is capital to be gained in the summer window by some of the players that we could indeed move on. Kevin says, to expand, if we win the Premier League and maybe one other cup, then we easily pass the group stage of the Champions League and do well in the league. Do you think Arteta may push in the Champions League over a second league win? I don't think so. I think Arteta will always look to prioritise the competition of the Premier League. Of course, we'd love to try and win a Champions League. Let's cross that bridge when it comes. That is going to be really important that we're patient. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We don't want to go too mad. Let's focus on this season. If we get into the Champions League, we can focus on that competition when it comes around. But let's focus on first pushing through and finishing this season as strongly as feasibly possible. Dan says, not trying to sound negative, but we don't need El Neni next season. We have enough. I do disagree. I think El Neni is, for what you're going to get for him, is basically nothing. He's not on a high wage. I think he produces consistent performances of a decent level. He's brilliant in the dressing room. He's a fantastic player to have in the group. And sometimes you can't put a price on how important it is to have the types of characters like El Neni in the group. They are really, really important. And, also, if you've got Charlie Patino coming through, for instance, what's the point in replacing El Neni with, say, a mid-20s player that then blocks the path of Patino when you can have El Neni there and it enables you to kind of ease Patino in rather than having a signing come in and expect to play more and block that pathway. So I think that El Neni has his benefits of still being here next season. And I actually, in fact, do expect him to be here next season. I would be surprised if they didn't activate the 1-year option in his contract. Blakey says, do you want to see Charlie Patino in the first team next season? I want to see him integrated, yes. I think that he will be able to be given minutes off the bench. I think he'll be able to be used in the cup competitions in the Champions League potentially next season. I think there's going to be opportunities for Patino, and I think he needs to be shown, if we're going to get him to convince him to sign a new deal, that there is a future for him at Arsenal. So yes, I would like to see Patino in the senior side next season. Leeds Gunner says, if someone offered us 60 million plus for Nketiah, do we sell if it helps us buy an elite midfielder like Camavinga? I think if someone came in with a bid of that much for Nketiah, you'd have to definitely consider it, especially when you've got someone like Balogun coming through and you've already got Gabriel Jesus here. So I think maybe you'd have to consider it. But if you keep scoring goals and say he's on 9, I think this season, if he gets more than 20 goals this season, why would we want to sell a player that's getting 20 plus goals for us? You know, Jesus has got a challenge now getting back into this team. A really big challenge getting back into this team. And that's great. It's a really good thing for us. But, yeah, we'll wait and see what ends up happening. Kevin says 28 likes and there's 1.3 thousand viewers. As shocking as Everton's performances this season. Wow, really? Is that true? 28 likes? Come on, guys, let's drop a like on the video. We've been getting over 1,000 likes on pretty much nearly every video we've done in the last few mornings or so. Please help support the channel. It means a lot when you do. So please do. It's like if you need like a manual of instructions for joining us in the morning shows, you get your coffee or your tea or your orange juice, you get your cereal and breakfast, you sit down, you chuck on the show, you press the like button, you make sure you're subscribed, you sit back, relax and enjoy and listen and get involved in the chat box. That is all the instructions you need for this morning show. So make sure you do drop a like on the video. Dan says, though, it does always say there's less likes than there actually are in reality. I'm sure there's probably more than that. Should we have a quick check? Should we do a like count? I'm also going to put a poll into the chat box regarding should we do a poll on how much you think we'll make in terms of money in the summer on player sales. So let's do that. How much will Arsenal make on player sales in the summer? So let's ask this question. So we'll have let's say less than 20 million. Because I think we should be able to get more than that. Let's say 20 to 30 million. Add another option, 30 to 40 million. I know that we might be able to do all of that if we were able to say sell. Let's say 45 million. And then one more, 45 million plus. Let's see what you guys are saying. How much do you think we'll make on player sales in the summer? That poll is now live. Should be. Yes, it is. How much will Arsenal make on player sales in the summer? Less than 20 million, 20 to 30 million, 30 to 45 million, or 45 million plus on player sales? Might have done it too low, but we'll see. Leeds says, what about Austin Trusty? He's done well on loan. Keep or sell? How much could he bring in? I think he'd probably get around 10 million plus probably for him. We bought him for, I think, 3 to 5 million. I think so. You're more than doubling your money. I think regarding Austin Trusty, he's probably going to move to another Championship side or maybe a promoted Premier League team or a team in Europe. I don't think he'll play for Arsenal. I don't think he is of that level yet, and it might take too long. He's already like mid-20s, early to mid-20s, so he's not exactly like a 20-year-old defender. In fact, he might even be 25. How old is Austin Trusty? Quick check. He's 24. He turns 25 in August. So, he's in his mid-20s already. You can probably see him going for 10 to 15 million pounds, maybe, if we can get a good deal for him. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat box. So already nearly 200 of you have voted on today's poll. By the way, if you're listening on catch up, just leave your thought in the comment section below, because obviously the poll won't still be there at that point in time. 8% of you said less than 20 million. 25% of you have said between 20 and 30 million. 37% of you say between 30 and 45. And 30% of you have said more than 45 million pounds. So yeah, interesting. So 30 to 45, I think, is the middle ground for people. I think that we can get more than 45 million if you sell players, as I say, like Nicola Pepe, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Nuno Tavares, Sambi Lokonga, Rob Holding, potentially following Balogun. That could jump things up significantly. I think there are options, Austin Trusty. Suddenly you're starting to see things add up. So I think there's potential really to see us. Pepe's done all right recently. We'll hear about his improving form in January, at the start of February when we do our loan show. So let's see what happens. Yeah, it's worth mentioning Nelson will not be sold because his contract expires instead. So Arsenal won't make any money, I don't think, unless so if someone signs him on a free, I'm pretty sure there's like a compensation thing in England or something like that. So maybe that'll happen, but I doubt it'll be very much at all. And Arsenal have players out on loan as well. Don't forget, like there are some players that we just continually forget that are even here. I mean, this season on loan we've got Balogun, Pepe, Trusty, Marie. Of course, we're going to get some money from Marie if Monza stay up. Arsenal get about 8 million, I think, from that. Alex Runarsson still here, of course. And as we've mentioned, Ainsley Maitland-Niles. If we have a look at the academy, who's out on loan from the academy? Mika Biereth. Interesting to see how he's going to be getting on. You've got Marcelo Flores, Tyrese John-Jules, Nikolai Moller, Ryan Alabiosu, Salah Adinu Ladam Hand, I think has an actual option of around 5 million maybe in his contract. Omar Rekic hasn't played at all. I'm surprised, actually, that he's not even returned from that loan spell, but not seen any updates or news on Omar Rekic whatsoever. So a quick check. Has he even played recently? Stats are this season 5 games in the Eredivisie, adding up to 18 minutes, but no, not played at all. I'm surprised that the club haven't recalled him. Might be something to get an update on. So that is going to bring an end to today's show. Leave your final votes on that poll. Very interested to get the final tallies on that. But do drop a like on the video as well. Really appreciate your time as always. And I'll be back. No, not this evening, but I'll be back tomorrow morning. And of course, we'll be bringing you a preview of that game against Manchester City, probably on Thursday. That's probably when we'll be bringing you that preview show. So if there is anything that drops, we'll try and react to it as soon as possible. Thank you so much for listening. It's been an absolute pleasure to join you, as it always is. Have a fantastic Tuesday. Stay safe, stay well. And as always, up the Arsenal.